It's the last night of quarantine, and I have so much stuff to do that all ballooned at the last second.
The wacky world of MultimediaJay.
When all this is over, I want to be remembered as somebody who tried to be a good steward with the stimulus funds as best as he darn well could. So, we got a few things here to unpack, and we've got a lot of stuff to do tonight, so let's get straight to it. First, GeForce RTX 2060 Superclocked from EVGA, returning to the EVGA Superclocked cards, which I've had a lot of good luck with over the last several years, as well as a more standardized card shape. I don't want to have really fancy cards that look like something from a sci-fi movie, because depending on the case, or if I'm doing the Dellasaurus project or something, there might be issues with how the cards fit in the cases if there's round edges in certain spots and things along those lines. So, yes, the Ampere cards are coming out, but if I know NVIDIA like I've come to know them over the last several years, those cards are going to be marked up all the heck, and they're going to be ridiculously expensive. So, why not pick up an RTX? I haven't upgraded the graphics in Monolith since it was built. Some of that was due to the crypto mining nonsense that inflated the price of graphics cards for years. So it's overdue to get a little more punch, and I can see if I can upgrade those games I'm running in high mode to running in ultra mode at 1080p. My insistence on sticking with 1080p is a lot of the reason why I'm even bothering with these cards in the first place, because, let's face it, I'm not going 4K anytime soon. And when I'm ready to go 4K, it's going to be a big hardware investment. There's a lot of things I have to change, a lot of horsepower I need to add. Could be the case that the current iteration of Monolith is my last 1080p computer, but we'll worry about that at some point later on. There's plenty of other things to worry about in the meantime. So, we also have a cheapo Walmart brand monitor, because there's no monitor over here in the project area anymore. I took the Samsung over to my main setup. Everything matches, so it's all Samsung, and it all looks nice because it matches. And quite frankly, two screens are awesome, even when you're not streaming. So, we have to put something over here. So, let's, in line with how I usually do things on this channel, let's see what we can do with a cheapo, store brand, Walmart special monitor. And in a break from my usual emphasis on show flow, I want to unbox this monitor in one big long take no matter what happens, because we all know how Walmart folks get, so I want to make sure that the person that handled this in the store didn't handle it too roughly, so to speak, and crack the screen. So 100% unboxing, on camera, one big long take. Let's get this done. How do we, here's the thing, we don't have to cut anything? Oh, alright, ready? Let's see if this, they were a little rough with it in the store. I just want to make sure, alright. There's one piece of cardboard going every which way, accessories going every which way. Get the styrofoam out of the way. How's the panel? The panel's in one piece. Hooray for modern packaging, because I know that folks in warehouses can be a little careless with this stuff too. So it's not just people in the store that let the box fall over that are part of the problem. We'll see if it powers up though. And the vertical stand for the panel is a two-piece thing that just snaps together. Unfortunately, cheapo Walmart stuff. The power block is this huge thing. Yet another reason why I buy short cords from Amazon every so often. What does it output? Oh, it's 12 volt 2 amp, interestingly enough. So has power efficiency really gotten that good with flat panels in recent years? No, seriously, 12 volt 2 amp. There we go, just two screws to secure the base, and then we got an HDMI, a D-sub, and DC. So, very similar pattern to some Samsungs I've seen. I'm curious if the supply chain for this monitor is either ODM or some kind of rebranding type thing with this style of monitor. Alright, let's hook the project area back up and see if we get signal. Okay, maiden voyage of the on monitor. So let's turn the on. Powered by Dellasaurus Rex. Soon to be upgraded. But for now, a little big on the fans. Not that bad, actually. It's great having a display over here that doesn't have a big scratch like that. I actually had a computer fall over, and that's the key reason why specifically that last monitor wound up with a scratch. Flat panels. See what it looks like when it's up to speed here. trying to test this out. Ugh. This on monitor is actually pretty decent. I have it in first-person shooter mode, which I think is the fast gaming mode or something along those lines. But there is something here that we got to talk about. So the K drive, the mechanical drive that I store the games on Dellasaurus Rex, is getting absolutely pummeled by the gigantic update to Elder Scrolls Online that basically reinstalls the game to make the game smaller or something like that. So it's applying the patch at focus at about 28 megs per second, when the read and write is basically split between 100 megs per second. So if I install Steam updates for the various Steam patches, they actually get stuck because of I/O bandwidth on the hard drive. And this really speaks to why gamers should go solid state on their PCs, even if they don't have problems with load times. A lot of people talk about putting a gaming SSD in as an improvement with regards to load times and stuff. But in this case, with the limits that mechanical drives bring to the table, you could have a situation where you're trying to patch your system up, and you're basically waiting on the disk, because you have one huge patch installing, you literally can't do anything else. Even though you have the internet to just bam, 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 download patches and stuff like that. So, as much as mechanical drives are good for cheap storage of files, that's the extent of their usefulness in today's world. SSDs, even straight to the motherboard SSDs, with 500 megs down and up, have a lot more bandwidth to play with. And this is only going to get worse as internet gets faster, and you realize that it's something locally on your computer that holds you back. I'll tell you, man, the maturity of 1080p technology is really showing that even a cheapo on monitor from Walmart looks pretty good at 1080-60. Of course, I'm probably not getting 60 FPS on Dellasaurus Rex with a 1050 Ti in it, but this is pretty awesome. Yeah, I like how it looks. I dare say I like how it looks better than my TV, and this is in the special mode for first-person shooters. So, this is with very little image processing. Just the panel itself off of the raw image with lower latency and whatnot. It's actually pretty nice. I definitely would game on this, even though it's a cheapo on monitor. I definitely say the gaming mode on this on monitor, which is what I'm guessing this FPS mode is, I think the gaming mode on this on monitor is actually better than the gaming mode on the Samsung I got a couple of years ago, which really shows just how much 1080p technology has matured. I mean, I remember when you couldn't even buy a flat panel without some disclaimer that you can only return it if there's at least 8 dead pixels. Well, man, what we have today, even with cheap LEDs, pretty awesome stuff. And of course we have some Geek House 5S represented in the ASIO peripherals now that the membrane keyboard is over here. So we have glowing blue lights on the keyboard and mouse over here, plus a volume knob. All I need is the Logitech gaming headset to complete the setup, which I have off to the side. But yeah, pretty nice setup considering we're about to take Dellasaurus Rex into the territory of having something more than a 1050 Ti. Also, let's remember this wattage. The wattage range went from about 30 to 120 watts. So when we upgrade it to the 1060 that's coming out of Monolith, what does that come to? Plus, we gotta see where you're at with the whole power supply thing. I might actually take the power supply out of Tuxedo in order to upgrade the Optiplex 9010 here. Because Tuxedo, nothing too exciting. It's old AMD stuff. We could always buy a new power supply later when they go on sale or something. And here's what the RTX 2060 refresh looks like, and look at all the packaging it comes in. I'm guessing all this packaging and custom EVGA tape and stuff may contribute to the cost of these things nowadays, but so we had bubble wrap, then foam, then the anti-static bag, and this even has protective film over it underneath all of that other stuff. So here's a 2060. Don't know if it's the super model or not, but even the regular 2060 has a bit more punch than the 1060 that I've been using. So we'll see if this allows me to finally max out ESO and some other games that I've been playing on high mode instead of ultra mode. First real graphics update for Monolith before whatever happens with Ampere comes out. Of course, I think it's going to be enough of a jump that the next time I'm looking at graphics, I might just be like, okay, we need something that can handle 4K 120 or something. Because that's the next leap with displays. Yeah, I've got 1080-60 now, and I've got 1080-60 for a television. But if the TV dies, we're probably going to have to jump to 4K 120, because that's the kind of TVs you get nowadays that have a gaming mode for gamers. A relatively square card here, but I'm not really too fond of this emphasis on looks. Like, for example, on the side, EVGA GeForce RTX 2060, that probably lights up when power is applied. Do I see anything that looks like an RGB strip in there? Let's see, I don't know. But this emphasis on looks over practicality is kind of sort of going to drive prices up. So, yeah, there's people out there with basically aquariums for computer cases nowadays with the tempered glass and everything. But I'm not so sure that's... or terrariums for computer cases. Don't think anyone's dumping water in there except for really hardcore water coolers who know how to waterproof everything else really well. But yeah, no, I'll pass on that. I'm sure that'll drive up prices. Let's get this thing installed in Monolith. And just like that, we now have an RTX 2060 in Monolith, so I can experiment with RTX audio and other little toys like that. Not so sure about ray tracing. I don't have anything right now that actually supports ray tracing, and quite frankly, I think I need beefier games. Because I'm at the point now where if a game stutters and doesn't run at a solid 60, it's probably because of the engine. So I gotta find some beefier games to throw at this thing. Anyways, as far as power efficiency goes, the other side of the equation with these systems. So with the fans all the way down, basically in winter mode, very, very quiet. I gotta blow the dust out of that too before I put everything back. So the RTX is actually not as power efficient as the 1060 was. Today's analog to the cards that I previously would have used is actually the 1660 Super, but I decided to go just 2060 flat out, get a little bit of taste of RTX before Ampere comes out. So with everything in winter mode and not doing anything too fancy, this machine can still dip down into the 30s for wattage. I think in order to cut the wattage even more, I'd have to get rid of mechanical drives and things along those lines. So remove the remaining hard drives, take them all SSD, and maybe even see if there's a fan controller out there that'll hard switch the fans off instead of just lowering them way the heck down like this. Although minimum speed is perfectly fine. I bet I could probably even run this thing in the summertime on minimum speed. Worst comes to worst, maybe turn up the back fan a little to exhaust things a bit. But most of the cooling performance, since I don't overclock, is actually the result of the heatsink on the processor. There just needs to be some airflow through the case in order to cycle hot air out. That's really the extent of it. I don't really have much of an issue with heating in the summer, especially when I have the air conditioner running. So, with the back fan on, we pretty much bottom out at 39 watts. Could always see if I could find some more power-efficient fans if I really want to split hairs here. But by and large, though, this thing's ready to go back and be set back up. Alright, up next for the Dellasaurus Rex project. Let's get this EVGA bronze out of mid-knots and prioritize the Ivy Bridge over the Core 2 Quad until the next time we snag a power supply on sale to put back in this thing. Of course, the RAM's kind of flaky too, so no big loss. This case sucks. I don't care how much people say Antec Sonatas and Antec Landboys are classic PC cases from the mid-2000s. When you have to bend the metal to get your power supply out without disassembling the whole computer, because otherwise you crash into the RAM sockets when you try and go around and down with the power supply, and you end up with a big huge scratch on an otherwise brand new power supply because of this nonsense, that's when you know your case is dated. I don't think I'm putting another power supply in this thing until I buzz off some of that metal, or just pull it off until it snaps, because quite frankly, that doesn't help hold anything anyways. You have screws on the back of the mounting plate, so you just bolt the thing into place. The question is whether or not you want to be able to get your power supply out of the machine without taking the whole thing apart. And this thing is just so that you have to. Footrest it is for the foreseeable future with this thing. It's a Core 2 Quad anyways. I'm not missing much. We're done. I figured I'd get stuck, but I didn't think I'd get stuck on this. So here's a 2-fan graphics card. It goes out, it will fit with this cage in here when it's in its proper position, but just barely. Here's the real problem. The serial ATA is underneath where the graphics card will go. So the only way to continue with this is to get special serial ATA cables that go out the side. I had to use these in Monolith to not lose a serial ATA port. Now I need them in order to use any serial ATA ports. So, Bottom line, if you're going to take the Dellasaurus route, get one of those special graphics cards with only one fan in them. And here's proof that everything will fit. We just have to figure out what to do about the serial ATA ports. Bottom line, if you take the Dellasaurus route to build yourself a gaming PC, get one of those EVGA itty-bitty cards that only has one fan on it. The smaller versions of the regular cards. This is the one with the 2 fans. Obviously a 3-fan one would crash into... yeah, you'd have to saw that cage off, then figure out another way of mounting the drives. And the interesting thing about this is transferring everything to another case wouldn't solve a thing, because of where the serial ATA ports are placed. So yeah, otherwise you could just put this in Tuxedo and look for a better graphics card for this thing. Tuxedo would still work. And this would give it some much needed punch to modernize its FX processor with a 1060. Decisions. Well, back to the drawing board. Whether or not I search for a special graphics card for this or not is, who knows, maybe we could crowdfund something, I don't know. So, from the edge of the case, what's our magic number? At about 7.5 inches, we are bumping up against the serial ATA ports. So that's the kind of magic number you'd be looking for shopping for a graphics card. 7.5 inches or shorter. Otherwise, you gotta buy special cables or mod the case. One of the limitations of the whole Dellasaurus thing. Another thing of note is that rounder cards might have problems with this little clamp when you go to close it, and it might close extra tight. So here's the hard numbers behind this current Dellasaurus Rex conundrum. So here's the special cable right here. This is an ultra-low profile serial ATA 500mm Silverstone cable, which translates to about 20 inches or so, which I think will cover that case quite well. Because it's 90 degrees parallel instead of 90 degrees perpendicular, or something along those lines, basically the shape, it doesn't matter if you have 4 connectors right next to each other on the motherboard horizontally, to the point where if you use regular 90 degree cables, you can only use a couple of the spots, and you risk crunching the cable as well. So this is something I've used before with some success in Monolith to not lose a serial ATA port that just happened to be placed right under where the graphics card would go, so I already know that these work. The problem, as I figured, with experience from before, is that they're $14 a pop for a 20-inch cable. 14 times 3, you do the math, yeah, that's pretty pricey just to jam an oversized graphics card inside a Dell Optiplex. Now, if we look at the graphics card side of it, you have this. The GTX 1660, specifically picked because it's single fan, and it has the dimensions to fit inside that case. So we would be looking at, for DIMMs here, a length of... where is that? I just saw it. Further down. There it is. Max GPU length, 190 millimeters. Card dimensions, the length, 7.48 inches. Just small enough to fit in that case. For $239. And you want to get modern technology here, because if you get the single-size 6GB GTX 1060, it's being sold at a markup through resellers, $400 for older technology. So, yuck. And this one, of course, this is the block card that I prefer for Dellasauruses. What are the DIMMs on this one? 6.8 inches. So, good stuff on that one. And then we have the GTX 1060, the Asus, which didn't fit, and it's a little round because of the thing that it's got some rounded edges to it, so it doesn't play nice with the clamp in the Dellasaurus cases anyways. Too long at 9.5 inches. So yeah, you need a single fan card if you're going to go the Dellasaurus route. So we got to switch to plan B then. We'll put the Dellasaurus Rex back together with the 1050 Ti. It's the better of the two Dellasauruses, so it'll get the graphics card until we figure something else out for all of this. In the meantime, I've got something else up my sleeve for this old graphics card so it doesn't go to waste. Now here's the goofy part about all of this. Yeah, sure, I could squeeze that 1060 into that Dellasaurus and get the special cables and everything, but here's the thing. We forget how old the GeForce 10 series really are because of how we were turtling in place while all that crypto mining nonsense was going on and driving up the graphics card prices. I mean, my 1060 6GB is actually from 2016. It's a nearly 5-year-old card at this point. And here's the thing. The 1660 that's sized better for a Dellasaurus case actually has a slight performance edge over the 1066 gig. And we're not even touching the TI or the Super version. 276, 147, 232 versus 221, 148, 207. So, yeah. It's the silent aging of technology yet again. And basically, people out there forget how old the GeForce 10s are because maybe they turtled for years while graphics card prices were way too high because of all the crypto mining that was going on a couple of years ago. Yeah, silent aging of technology. Okay, Dellasaurus Rex is back together, minus the stock power supply. But notice how the power efficiency has kind of gone out the window now that we have a bronze 600 watt in there that is a little overkill for what we're running in there. That's the efficiency curve, ladies and gentlemen, plus it's only 80 plus bronze certified, while this wimpy power supply, even though it's only 275 watts, was 80 plus gold. Something to be said for some of those OEM designs, which try to factor in the overhead costs that businesses incur when running computers at desks and stuff like that. Something that the gaming PC world is woefully behind the times on. Alright, at least we have this thing working. So, if we can crowdfund raise the money for a 1660, the Dellasaurus Rex project will continue. In the meantime, though, people say all kinds of nice things about the AMD FX series to the point of romanticizing it. I can still do gaming, it's still fine. You just overclock it. Overclock the heck out of it. It's pretty good for that sort of thing. We shall see. 1066 gig FX 8320E. On a board that is like new, it's just old with old technology and 16 gigs of RAM, which is too fast for the motherboard. So a lot of this is in overclock territory. So let's have some fun. See how long this machine stays viable, even though it's ridiculously power inefficient compared to its successors. There is one more thing we have to take a look at before calling it with this stuff. What's inside this slightly dinged up Lowe's box? Making sure it arrived in one piece. There it is! Blue Hawk plastic shelving. Very similar to the pipe shelving that I have in the project area, except smaller. I think this is actually going to be the right-sized adjustable shelving that I can use to hook up my full setup again, assuming the pipes aren't cheap like the last one I tried was. This will allow me to have all my consoles hooked up, and I can just add more onto it if I want to add more shelves, as long as it doesn't get too top-heavy or anything. Oh man, it's time to get my setup the way I've been wanting it for so long now. We'll do that off camera, though. Now, if I remember right, I didn't hook this thing back up just for my health. Let's take it for a spin. AMD FX processor, 1066 gig. How do they match up? There we go, now that's what I'm talking about. ESO, technical issues and all, 1080-60 in high mode. Managing to pull off, okay, unless there's background tasks running or something. There might still be some updates coming down to this computer for the various apps and stuff. But again, I have to wonder, with the way this panel looks versus the way my TV looks, am I missing something by still running a 2008 television into the ground? No, seriously, this is something else entirely. I almost want to just play all my games on the cheapo Walmart screen instead of the big TV and everything. So, it's just how panel technology has developed in recent years, I guess. So, maybe I should consider getting a new TV or something like that. But then what would I do with the old one? That's the thing. Can't figure out what I would do with the old one if I didn't finish running it into the ground. So that mystery will remain unsolved for yet another day. There is one more thing we have to talk about before we call it a night with this Dellasaurus stuff. Let's take your average 2-fan graphics card like this 760, which is roughly the same sort of dimensions as the 1060 that I tried putting in there. Of course, there is a little bit more space, but here's the thing. You have a 2-fan graphics card like this, somebody out there is going to mention those PCI Express things, those PCI Express ribbon cables that are used in HTPC cases and whatnot to scoot a graphics card off to the side. Someone will probably ask, hey, why don't you just use one of those cables to go from the jack down to somewhere else, wherever you can mount, however you can mount this graphics card. The thing is, you just can't. There is just enough obstructions on the motherboard to make it 100% impossible to put a 2-fan graphics card this size into any of the other slots. Theoretically, you could bolt it down to one of these others and then use a ribbon cable to go up to the PCI Express port. But here's the problem. We know it doesn't work because it covers up the serial ATAs when it's up at the top. You bring it down a little further, and part of the card is going to crash into this heatsink. You bring it down even further, it's going to get in the way of the wires and stuff like that. And what are you going to do when you have an adapter going out where there's actually a regular PCI slot or something else? Bottom line, these Dell Optiplex cases have their gimmicks and their quirks, and this is one of them. So, if you want to go the Dellasaurus route, again, you have to pick your graphics card based specifically on the fact that you're going to be squeezing everything into one of these Optiplex cases. Because, yeah, it gets pretty cramped pretty quickly. These machines were not made for this kind of stuff, and it's a real serious project to get any of these things working that way. Matter of fact, let me check out one thing with this 760 before I even close the case. Yep, half covered up. So the motherboard doesn't change very much from Sandy Bridge to Ivy Bridge. I was thinking for a second there that this was going to crash into the bottom of the RAM sticks. But yeah, how'd you like that? You go to upgrade your RAM, you have to take the graphics card out just to open up the RAM slots. Or if, say, you jolt the thing too much and you have to reseat the RAM, now you gotta pull the graphics card out just to do that. Yeah, you need small graphics cards for stuff like this. No two ways about it. Let's get this 760 out of this thing. I think I'm going to put it in mid-knots.